They want to settle so badly. They don't like what we're doing. And they do want to settle. We'll find out whether or not we settle with them or we just finish it off.
For more, we're now joined by Stuart Livingstone-Wallace, our executive editor for the Middle East, North Africa, and Russia. Stuart, thanks for joining us. What exactly do we know about these latest strikes, except outside of the headlines, and really how are they fitting into the overall conflict at this juncture?
Yeah, good morning, Jennifer. So, I mean, from what we've seen so far, it's fitting the playbook that we've seen over the last week or so, and arguably before that. Clearly, both sides are trying to send a signal here, and they're trying, I think, very hard not to escalate. Now, I know that sounds slightly odd in the context of, certainly several dozens of attacks on a daily basis from either side. But if you look at what the US is targeting, it chiefly seems to be military installations along the coastal areas, therefore very specifically around protecting Hormuz, or at least degrading Iran's ability to threaten shipping. And then from the Iranian side, it seems very squarely aimed at US military assets around the Gulf, but specifically Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, so on and so forth, slightly further afield, obviously. I think the thing to keep an eye on here is when that target list expands to things like major cities, infrastructure, that sort of thing. That's when I think we read into it that there is a major escalation going on, and obviously that raises the stakes altogether.
Which sort of poses the question then, Stuart, what are the risks if we are continuing to see a number of these diverging headlines and the rhetoric coming from both sides, really?
No, I mean, I think that's an extremely good question, and I would sort of treat it this way. It is very easy in an environment where lots of missiles and drones are flying over at a rapid pace over vast swathes of the region, that one of those goes astray and does some horrific damage to something that was unintended, and that then forces the other side to in turn escalate to respond in kind, and that can get out of control very, very quickly. And evidence for that, you don't have to go back much further than March and April, where we saw widespread attacks on civilian infrastructure. That includes ports, airports, energy facilities, that kind of thing. That's a situation we could get back to unless both sides are very careful and try and find ways of de-escalating the situation. But as I say, when there's this much hardware flying around, it's very hard to contain that and to ensure that we keep a lid on things. So I think that is probably the biggest concern here.